Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Nostalgia Trap podcast. My name is David Parsons. I am very happy that you are listening to the show, and I hope you enjoy the conversation that I have for you today. My guest is someone I went to graduate school with at the CUNY Graduate Center a few years ago. He was in the English department. I was in the history department, but I think we took a few film classes together. We talk about that on the show. His name is Matt Lau. Matt is currently a professor of English at Queensborough Community College, which is part of the CUNY network here in New York City. And we had a great conversation about graduate school and academia and what it means to us and what it used to mean and now what it doesn't mean to us anymore, how it's evolved. I really appreciate Matt's perspective. You know, he has a real love for the work, for the scholarship. He talks a lot about Freud, and I'm not a Freud person at all, but he makes me wish I was in a lot of ways because he has a way of talking about Freud and why it's such important stuff that really communicates that to me. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with him, and I hope you enjoy more of these conversations at nostalgiatrap.com. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's at David L. Parsons. I always have the latest episode pinned to the top. I appreciate your business. And speaking of business, please donate to the show if you get a chance. It really, really helps me keep this thing up and running and free so far. So please enjoy this conversation and enjoy more Nostalgia Trap as you wish, as you find it on the internet. This is me and Matt Lau. I don't know when we met, Matt. It's sometime during my years at the Graduate Center. I started there in 2004. When did you start?
2003. I think we had
Get closer to the
We had a
microphone,
class
yeah.
with Wayne Kostenbaum.
That's right. That was, if I had to guess, like
film class.
like 10 years ago.
At least.
You know what I remember? I mean, okay, so my impression of you, and this is like just when I think about those years in the Graduate Center, I associated you with James Hoff because the two of you were writing a lot in the paper. He was the editor of The Advocate, right?
Yeah.
And you had some wacky column that was like in the back page, right?
That's like the crowning achievement of my literary career.
That's pretty much the bulk
Thank
of your
God.
writing. Yeah.
It's like not Google searchable anymore because that shitty website got hacked so many times.
Did it really? The CUNY Advocate website?
Yeah. Yeah, they used to just be like comment bots on all the articles.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, that paper was an entryway into a whole world at the Graduate Center. What I remember especially, though, knowing about... I think another reason I associated you and James Hoff together is because there were only a few people at the Graduate Center I felt like that were from California. Is that right?
Is that true?
I feel like there were only a few, and I felt like we were all like... I don't know. It was like there was a stigma to being a California person.
There is. In New York, there's a lot of haters.
I felt like I was a yokel every time I opened my mouth.
Resentful people. Yeah, moving here, I became aware of being seen as a Californian.
Well, where in California are you from?
Dude, and
and being like, y'all got a subway here?
Bruh.
I'll be damned. That's literally how I felt. I would often say like, I'm from Southern California. You know, I'd mention like Bakersfield and shit, and like people in New York, I don't know. CUNY
Bakersfield's deep. Bakersfield's a deep place.
Well, CUNY Graduate Center has a reputation for being this kind of like radical working class place, but there's also, I mean, it's also like an erudite, respectable campus that has a lot of hoity-toity East Coast people there, don't you think?
The English department, yeah, is very... It's like all the faculty study with Paul DeMann.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Queer theory.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
It's sophisticated.
It's on like the. It's on the.
It's not the rugged West
side of radical, but I mean, where I went to college too was.
Wait, you went to Santa Cruz, right?
Yeah, that was very.
Let's do UC Santa Cruz.
Everyone's like Ivy League and.
I've never been to UC Santa Cruz. I've never been up there.
Lucky you.
But I went to Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, which I think is the next campus down the coast from Santa Cruz, if I'm not mistaken. The UC of the UCs.
Yeah. There's a couple of Cal
Davis.
States.
Yeah, there's Davis is what, near Sacramento. But
Countdown.
I mean, UC Santa Cruz, how'd you get there? Are you from around that area?
No, I grew up in SoCal. I grew up in Long Beach.
You grew up in Long Beach?
East 53rd Street.
Oh my God.
And then we moved to the OC.
Wow, so that's like
when I was 10 or 9. when I was 9, we moved to, but I always went to school in Long Beach. So although all my friends in high school like ridiculed me for living in Orange County.
Yeah,
I went to like Snoop Dogg's high school.
I was just going to ask about Snoop Dogg. I feared that was like a cultural stereotype.
I'm so proud of that, though.
It's like Long Beach and Orange County were big parts of the cultural imagination during the time that you were in them.
Yeah, like it's weird.
Yeah,
like my violin teacher growing up, his nephew was in Real Big Fish, and like I had all these friends like in that kind of weird.
That's big for me.
I had all these friends from like.
Real Big Fish was like my Grateful Dead in college. Like Real Big Fish to me was just, I followed them. I saw them many times with the Aquabats.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Yeah, those
my friends, all my like music nerd friends from when we were kids, were suddenly elevated to that
third wave ska. That's such an embarrassing and dorky part of my youth. Yeah,
in middle, but that was the shit.
Yeah,
Save Ferris and fucking.
Yeah, I saw Save Ferris many times.
Pocketland.
Real Big Fish. I didn't know Pocketland. I just know all the shitty ones. Bucko9. God, so many. Less
Long
Than
Beach,
Jake.
Long Beach Dub All Stars.
Yeah, who were associated with Sublime. You know what's weird is there was kind of like this white gangster thing going on and all that stuff.
So that's like my inner identity.
Yeah,
it's like white gangster.
Yeah, me too, definitely. I tell people that all the time that I've got like a gangster thing going on.
I basically grew up playing the violin, sort of seriously, but also always had like headphones with like DJ Quick or Eazy-E.
Did you play the violin and like beatbox ever at the same time? Or no. What was your interest in violin? When did that start?
I just started as a kid. Like Long Beach, for whatever reason, has this really good, or pretty good for a public school system music program. So they like roll in your second grade class and play the theme to Star Wars. And my brother and I were just like, oh shit, Mom, we need some violins.
You have a twin brother, right?
I have an identical twin brother, yeah. Who's like the more serious, smarter version of me.
Wow, I get to meet that guy.
Yeah, he'll talk your ear off. If you like the mansplaining Marxist like idiom.
Okay, so there's so many different streams you've got going on. It's like violin, white gangster, mansplaining Marxist. Like this is a cartoon character that could only be created in Southern California in a lot of ways. But like,
yeah.
What I mean, okay. So the white gangster thing, what is that? Because I feel like that would have happened a lot in Long Beach, Orange County, but it definitely happened a lot in.
There's just wiggers everywhere.
Yeah.
I was not like that. I was like a hippie kid in high school,
right.
But I don't know, that's just a normal.
Right.
That's a normal male identity type.
Yeah.
It's like Brooklyn is like that too.
Yes.
There's like 50-year-old men in like white dudes in like white Air Force Ones.
Yeah, and Timberlands and all that kind of shit.
It's just like a urban, I don't know, hip hop's just the dominant culture.
It's saturated everything.
It's a dominant culture.
But I mean, it's also, I think it's funny.
Since we were kids, since we were adolescents.
Basically, yeah. And it was aimed right at us.
Snoop was like the number one music when I started high school.
Me too. And he was like, I think we were probably about the same age. He was like 19 years old. I didn't realize that. Like when Snoop came out in high school, I thought this guy's like a full-grown, just terrifying individual. Instead, he was like if you watch the videos, he's a kid and he grew up to be such like a harmless dude. You know, it's so weird because there was such hysteria about Snoop Dogg and like all that gangster shit on the news when we were growing up.
That was just like good marketing. I think.
In a lot of ways, you're right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
The thing about that music, that G-funk music, that's so hilarious, which I knew unconsciously at the time, but is that so much of the sampling is from like this yacht rock. Right. It's literally from like the Doobie Brothers. Like everyone's favorite fucking song, the fucking Regulators song. That's just, it's Michael McDonald, Keep Forgetting.
That's amazing.
Which is also like a really smooth, I mean, both songs are amazing.
You should have written your dissertation about that. About like
that's so cliche.
What is yacht rock? Like
Kenny Loggins and Doobie Brothers. I don't know. There was like some YouTube parody shit of it like 10 years ago. That made
I feel like I know what you mean.
It made it a meme.
It's almost like close to AM Gold.
It's like LA like the Eagles.
Yeah,
like,
the shit that
Linda
that
Ronstadt.
Lebowski hates. That kind of like, it's almost like
I depart from him a little bit on that.
Yeah, it's like the follow-up stuff to like
he's like
the
living in the
60s.
past, you know.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what I was gonna say about hip hop. Is like this stuff was aimed at us in the sense that like white, I think male off like suburban kids. All of a sudden, I'm really like all of a sudden I'm mouthing the words to like killing cops and shit like that. Like a reality that isn't close to me really at all, and yet it like I love it. It's really weird. Like maybe it is clever marketing.
Yeah, it's like noir. So many things sell the dark side of America.
Yeah,
it's like a fantasy.
Yeah, no, I guess it's like the same as like
movies,
being into like
whatever,
dime novels
games.
about Western outlaws and shit. Like people have always wanted to hear about gangster shit, no matter what genre it is in. Like The Sopranos are popular.
I mean,
like,
I fucking love. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know why.
It's like
America's a criminal country.
Yeah, it's kind of a way. It's a way of imagining being like a capitalist in like in a way like it's kind of a form of capitalism.
It's super. Hip hop is like super entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
It really is. Like
it's a creation of American capitalism. It's like it could only be that. Like this idea of like making yourself into an awesome dude, using like all the tools that are around you, including violence.
I mean, there's some of it is like socially conscious, but for whatever reason, I just that part of it never it never appeals to me. I never like see. I'm like listen to Most Def or
Talib
these guys, and
I'm
like, oh, it's like really well-meaning like college like spoken word open mic songs.
That's what it sounds like to you.
But I prefer like Zero and Devin the Dude and like I don't know, party music.
Yeah, that's
not because it's right. It's
no, I know. I know what you mean. It's like it's a weird. I feel like it goes with the personality of being like an academic. Of like, there's like this. There's one impulse to like problematize and criticize and kind of like see everything that's wrong with shit. And then there's also like when you want to just listen to music and like there's a freedom that away from all of that stuff when it's raw. You know what I mean? When it's just like. It's not about all that shit. It's not about thinking through all the problems. It's about just like expressing it immediately. I don't know. I feel like in a lot of ways I've like ruined my mind with graduate school because it's like it just
you deconstruct the takeout menu.
Yeah, exactly. Why did you want to go to graduate school?
I don't know. I wouldn't do it if I had to do it again.
No?
I just feel very lucky to have like made it to, a tenure track job. I think I had the misfortune of going to a college that was very where the curriculum was really interesting and all over the place. And I just wanted to keep like I started college doing music, but then at a certain point I was like, how far am I really going to go as a violinist? And my brother had been studying English at UCLA, so I was like, let me take some lit classes. And like the literature program at Santa Cruz is sort of, it overlaps with, faculty overlap with like cultural studies and history of consciousness. So it was just sort of this sort of, you're reading the canon, you're reading Frankfurt School, you're reading like non-Western lit. It's just a really diverse education. And I thought, I wanted to keep doing that in some stupid idealistic way. Like I had no idea.
What's idealistic about it? Because I think you have a romantic notion of education, right? You might. We all do it. We all have to a little bit.
Yeah, I guess. Sure. I never like putting labels on things.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I'd label the shit out of everything. It makes life easier. And even if the label is just wrong, it doesn't matter because I'll move with it. You know what I mean? My parents are teachers, so I was like, that seemed like a really natural profession for me to go into. College teachers or high school?
My mom is now, and my mom teaches math education. I mean, for years she was a math teacher at high school in LA, and then she's been full-time as a lecturer at, she needs to fucking retire, but she's been full-time at Cal State Long Beach for I don't know how long, 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
But just on the periphery of academia, you know, she's not like a quote unquote professor or anything.
Yeah.
You know, she actually does all the work. Like, organizing student teaching.
I would totally take a full-time lecturer position. Are you kidding me?
No, I know, but it's on the education. It's not some fanciness.
Yeah,
basically. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I just thought I wanted to teach, but also wanted to keep learning and stuff. And so I just started applying to grad school and like came here almost on a whim without any preparation or understanding.
Did you know about the CUNY Graduate Center at all before?
I did. Like I knew some people in New York. I knew Louis Manan taught here.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Wayne Kostenbaum seemed like somebody who I could work with on like music and literature things. I've just been really lucky. Like the English department, I mean, I think they accepted me because they understood the sense of that my lack of specialization was something they were okay with, like they could work with. Yeah. I think it's changed. Like now CUNY's much more, from what I hear, it's much more like they want you coming in with like a period and a project and get out in whatever 6 years.
And that seems, that seems impossible. Especially with the package that they give you. 6 years seems really quick. I was there for, I think I was there a decade, almost.
I was there
almost
8
10 years. Yeah. That history of consciousness shit, like that's like that. When you say that, I think of like hippie school. I think like Joseph Campbell and shit like that. But like, what is history of consciousness? Because I know it's a big part of like what UCSC does.
I honestly didn't know that much about it at the time. Now I do because my brother's out there and I know some of the grad students and profs in the program. I mean, it's a continental. It's like a, you know, continental philosophy, Marxism place, and then it's also like a, you know, queer theory place.
Yeah.
It's just like one of those like rhetoric at Berkeley. I mean, it has this old pedigree of Norman O'Brien and I don't know. It was like the place for theory, quote unquote theory, back in the day. But
how many years were you at Santa Cruz?
Just for undergrad.
So, I mean, what's the culture of that place like? Because I have the stereotype in my head of like hacky sacks and shit.
That's true.
Yeah.
The stereotypes. I think it's changed. Now it's way less white. It was super white when I was there. So there's all these white people in this paradise talking about injustice. Literally.
I think that was the school's slogan, actually, for a long time. All these white people in this paradise talking about injustice.
That's literally, I mean, well, that's the stereotype of the university system.
Yeah, that's why Trump won, man.
We're the elite.
I just like saying that now whenever like there's a pause in the conversation. I just say, that's why Trump won. That's exactly why he won. It's just like, when you're talking about the university, man, I don't know.
The university's lost. I mean, the university is lost.
That's what it feels like.
Horrible.
I feel like more and more.
Place.
I mean, it was always a place to hide out. You know what I mean? Like for like whatever, a certain type of person to hide out. And I definitely felt that way. And that's why I was like, people are talking about Trump now and like what's going to happen. I definitely felt like, if you recall, because I think you probably entered the Graduate Center during the Bush years too.
Yeah.
Like, was that part of it at all for you? I'm thinking back on it now. I tend to like assign a lot of like causality to the idea that I was really alienated from everything that was going on in society, and I thought being in school would be like a good thing.
I don't think it helped with the alienation though, because then you're just there reading all this highfalutin, lefty politics stuff. That just makes you feel more alienated.
Yeah.
Like when I was
more useless.
When I was 25, 26, and I was there, I really thought if I just read Hegel and read all this nonsense, Zizek, whatever, that I would know everything,
right?
And be like, and then I'd write some crazy philosophy.
and then
and
the world
become
would
famous.
be saved.
Yeah, and everyone, and I'd really make a difference.
Yeah. It sounds like you don't believe in any of that anymore. You're like the Christopher Nolan Bruce Wayne now. You know, you don't believe in the project.
No, I do, but I'm just a teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm hiding out from that side of me that gets in trouble. That like James Hoff encourages in me. Like, hey, bro, write these articles. Why don't you write articles ridiculing the president of the Graduate Center? On a monthly
I remember
basis
that. That was William
until
Kelly.
He literally calls you on the phone and tells you to knock it the fuck off.
Did that really happen?
Yeah.
This is Bill Kelly, right?
The like sweetest guy who I totally have like
seriously.
I have like an Oedipal complex for because he was in his class and he like loved my writing.
He was a super accessible guy for being
nice
president
guy.
of the university.
And then and he was fine with it at first when we were like because the theme of that one of the big themes of that was that CUNY was so broke that the professors were always doing like
really humiliating
things to get money. And like the students were like eating the free printer paper. And like, and like, you know, there was like going to be a Taco Bell in the library.
That's right.
Like,
yeah,
whatever.
I loved it. It was deep satire. It was specific to the problems of the university.
I tried it but also I tried to just be nihilistic and not moral.
Right.
Like,
right.
So that's when we got.
That's
in
the
trouble.
worst satire.
We got in trouble because.
You turned him into like the way the Onion does Joe Biden.
He was
you know
like,
what I mean?
he was
a character.
He was like, he was like, he's ruggedly handsome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm attracted to him.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Well, yeah, especially. I mean
not sexually. Well, probably a little bit, but
he's
like
got like a 19th century thing.
Yeah.
And there's always the like, I don't know, the raw erotic power of an administrator. You know what I mean?
Yeah, going in his office. Totally. His graduate seminar used to be like in his office, and it was like so much nicer than normal.
I'm sure. I
imagine the lower floors of the grad center, but
bearskin rugs and shit.
I wrote a column about him because basically they were putting out like a firefighter calendar, all of pictures of him to raise money for scholarships and fellowships and shit.
Sure.
And then there was some other one where all these professors were doing like a bikini car wash.
Oh, I remember that. That's the one that I was like,
literally, Jerry Watts literally told me he was going to kill me. I mean, rest in peace.
Yeah, Jerry Watts, R.I.P. Jesus. Yeah, I think that's the one where I was like, I don't know what Matt's doing here, but yeah, it's funny to think
over
of
the line.
I think I know a little bit of what you're saying though, in terms of like, I don't know, that like I did feel that way, where like, especially in early graduate school, that I was like, if I read the right shit and understand the right philosophies, I'm gonna like kind of see my way through, and we're like, we're on the cutting edge of thinking through the big problems here. And that kind of like arrogance of academia, I think, is part of its own kind of alienation in a lot of ways. It's like this separateness.
I still think that, like, honestly, like, I'm now on this completely quixotic mission to write a biography of Stephen Jay Gould with no background in biology, and I'm just basically what I like from the process of writing a diss and all going through. What you realize is like, holy, it's just work. It's just work to write a book.
Yeah.
And then you just do it all over again.
Right.
And then you never, I mean, that's where I guess I'm romantic, or not even romantic. I'm just like, fuck, this job is hard. It's like, you have to keep writing stuff. Which
it took a long time to write the first one.
Which means you have to keep learning and reading, and like, no one's really minding the store.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just on you. I mean, that's partly why I'm attracted to Gould. Is like, he was so prolific.
What about biography too? I mean, like, I think a lot of academics, like, they seek out biographies because there's like a container for the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Although if you talked about it, I feel like biographers have this sense of being sort of, I don't know, they have this kind of resentment towards academia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Where there's like, oh, that's not real.
Yeah. And academics, I think academics look down on biography, I think.
Yeah, it's like narcissism of minor differences shit.
Like,
because so much of I mean, my sense of it is like in literature, like the traditional thing has always been history and biography. And like we're an adjunct of the history department, literary criticism. It's, you're dealing with text, interpretation, but you're also got to put it in the context. And like so much of that theory stuff, like that I've read, and I look at these books again and I've like annotated the hell out of it. And now I'm reading, I'm like, I just see the forest more. Like that the argument moves within all that verbiage, the argument just sort of moves conventionally, and the styles not one I want to adopt. Like I don't want to sound like De Man and Derrida, and I don't know. It's just not. I partly I think because I'm constantly having to just introduce the fact of reading and writing for pleasure to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean,
my whole, I don't know.
How does teaching affect
I'm
that?
like back to where I'm back to where I started with being like, if I am sort of white gangster in the classroom, I can convey sophisticated ideas.
That's how I am too. It gets me in trouble sometimes because it's like I tend to talk. I don't know. I talk pretty colloquially in the classroom, and like that's the thing that people often mention. And like
that's your problem. Don't talk.
Don't talk at all.
Anything. Yeah. Just be like, what? Like when they ask me, what do you think?
I say, shut the fuck up.
You can get away with that. You can get away with what do you think for like 6 weeks if they're not sharp.
Oh man!
Before someone gets annoyed with like, come on, just.
I don't know though, dude.
And then you can go to I don't. Can someone else answer that?
I've had students like just last week. I said, "What do you think?" A fucking movie we just watched. We literally just watched it in class. I was like, "What'd you think?" And he said, "Oh, can I pass because I didn't prepare anything?" He literally was like, "I didn't prepare anything to say right now." It's like it'd be as if I just said like, "Hi, how are you?" and you said, "Oh, pass." I didn't prepare an answer to that. It's like that's what fucking conversation is, dude. It's weird. I like the idea that you could just pass out of the conversation like it's a fucking game show.
Yeah. No, I mean it's not whatever. It's never perfect. But those kind of moment. That's the kind of moment I'm looking for in the classroom. Like unpredictable.
Yeah.
Then it's like, why not?
Well, do you think that, how does all that like
what were you doing instead, like
Hegel shit and all that like academic, the high academic sophisticated stuff that seems useless to us now in a lot of ways? I mean, did it have any like, how did that relate to teaching? Because like you get to teaching and you're like, oh shit, like all of that seems very, very distant to me now.
Well, when I was teaching and I was really into that stuff, I feel like I was a bad teacher. Yeah, I was just like not bad, but I was not. I definitely thought I could just talk.
Yeah, right.
And it would be transmitted. And lives would be changed.
Yeah, right.
Like
pants would be shitted, tears falling down everyone's faces. Yeah, I mean I think there is like an arrogance and hubris in the early graduate school moments. And I see it now. Actually, I think like
I see it when I go observe people. When I go observe people who are younger and they're just like
the 25-year-old graduate
you see them
student.
trying to make some deep point. And like, I don't even have this problem, but like half the kids are just texting.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, that's right. We didn't really go to school during the time it was like intense social media. It was just starting. It was just starting. But yeah, all the little things that people like, all the little ways of talking that people pick up in seminars when they're just in grad school, saying things like, "Oh, I want to piggyback on this." So point. I'm back, and like all that shit. Yeah. It's just excruciating.
I'm like back in a and I'm grateful. Thank you. Everybody who gave me the fellowship and whatever, but I feel like I'm back in grad school right now because I'm in this seminar at CUNY called at the Center for Place, Culture, and Politics.
Oh shit!
Or the Center for PCP.
Yeah, right.
So at the PCP Center,
this is David Harvey, right?
Yeah, but he's not in charge anymore. It's this woman, Ruth Wilson Gilmore.
Yeah,
I mean he's there, he's around. Peter Hitchcock's around. That's how I got this.
But talk about like Marxist theory.
So we've read some. I mean, we're reading each other's work, but the beginning of the semester started with this high theory stuff.
Yeah,
and I just completely, my brain caught a cold. Like I was like totally allergic to the fact that like we read this book, and this book is the worst kind. I mean the seminar theme, is a little bit. It speaks to what we're talking about. It's consciousness and revolution.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, aren't we reading Ram Dass? Like
25-year-old stoner me would have loved this shit.
Yeah,
Are you kidding
exactly.
me? Yeah,
It's
bring
so
Ram
much-
Dass in, please.
It's like
Terrence McKenna.
no
all
one
that
is
shit.
a
I love
25.
it.
I'm the closest thing to a 25-year-old California stoner in the room.
Right.
Everyone is like super serious. There's grad students who are like afraid of offending their advisors. And then
There
there's
is
me
kind of
who's like, I'm like calling, like when we read stuff that's like, we read some wacky book called The Spirit of Revolution. This like, I don't even know. Drusilla Cornell. She's at Rutgers. But the argument of the book is basically like fucking written by Captain Obvious. It's like, queer theory is not Marxist enough. It's like, oh yeah. Like, but it's written at length and it's just, it reads like seminar papers. And there's this whole thing about how Foucault being about Iran was like really radical and that's the direction we need to go. And I was like, that's honestly your argument that like we need like a BDS, we need a alliance between like the BDSM community and like the Islamic fundamentalist community to like have an authentic revolution like that. She's not saying, because she's just going through these texts so closely. It's like, that's not an argument, dude. That's like a premise for an insane like follow up to like Idiocracy or something.
Yeah,
but
or
that's not like a realistic.
It's not like a Kids in the Hall sketch or something.
It's not like, I don't know. It's like when people get led along by the text they're reading rather than actually in having their own point of view. It's just sad. But I came into seminar. I was like, this. I volunteered to introduce it because I was just like, I'm gonna try to like be one of the dominant sea lions on the rock.
Right.
I first week was just like, this book's elitist. If you read the Communist Manifesto, that says the opposite. This book is like, we should just have a spirit of revolution, like just fucking a ghost of revolution. And Marx and Engels are like, there's this spirit, and we're gonna fucking explain to you what it is
and how the practical pieces come together.
Yeah, and we have some ideas.
Yeah,
like let's have universal education. Let's not have child
nuts and bolts
labor. And I literally said, I was like, we shouldn't be talking about what Foucault said about Iran as if that's means anything besides an academic.
How might the erotics of the prison experience shed light on this?
That's a parlor Marxist, like, if you're on PCP, like, that's interesting. Like, and I was just saying straight up to them, like,
how do people react to this?
Basic income. We need to talk. Well,
aren't you just kind of shitting on the whole project at that point?
No, I wasn't. Well, I'm just like,
you're actually trying to recenter it. Actually,
I was trying to be like, if you want to change people's conscience, you got to have concrete ideas. You got to be like universal health care. You got to be 15 now. You got to be basic or more basic income stuff. I don't know. I just think young people get it about that neoliberalism hasn't worked out.
Right.
Older people do too, but they, you know, for whatever reason, for lots of weird reasons that don't all add up to anything logical, they don't necessarily vote left. And then, but they're all going to be fucking dead soon anyway. So it's basically like, as soon as they just need to die faster, and then, you know,
I always think that
these
like
progressive young people will be in charge.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a common thought in history, and people said that in the '60s. They're like, oh, like you know, youth culture is happening, and it's they're the rising tide, and as soon as that youth takes over, all war will stop, and you know, the utopia will be created. But all those young people grew up to be baby boomers and fucking old assholes that followed policies that are exactly the neoliberal shit that you're talking about.
No, I don't think it's. I mean, I'm being oversimplified.
The kids might be Trump kids. You know what I mean? Coming up, there's a lot of young.
Eventually,
like there's this kind of thing of these millennials. You know, this generation that's like fucked over completely, and like what's going to happen to them. And they seem to be like they were kind of the base of the Bernie Sanders movement in a lot of ways. I think that's probably true.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need high theory. To communicate or have ideas for people like that. I guess that's what I was saying in this seminar. But yeah.
Well, you were always I'm
just very contrary.
You're a combative presence. That's what I was going to say. It's like, that's how I remember in Kosenbaum's class, Like the one thing that I remember happening in that class, I mean, I remember a lot of things happening in the class. I remember I remember a student falling asleep on the table in the class, which I thought was like the most stunning thing because it was like this really professional environment, and she just fucking like laid her head down like a kindergartner.
He didn't say shit about it?
He didn't say anything about it, but he definitely noticed. But like the thing that I remember was a student, I remember who, because I don't remember really many people in that class. There were a ton of people in that class. There's like 25 people packed in this room. But like, because Kosamon was like real popular.
Yeah, people don't get that he's like, when he gives people the kiss of death and they don't see it.
Yeah.
Like when you say something he doesn't like, he's like, that's really interesting. And then he moves on.
Yeah, right. And
he's
really nice.
No one sees that he's like...
Seriously, one of the smartest dudes
politely telling
I've ever been in the same room as. But what happened is we were reading Freud. Like some passage. You remember this? Some passage of Freud, and someone was like,
I haven't discussed.
Someone was like, we shouldn't read this because Freud was racist. And the room was kind of quiet, and then you like just were like, that's fucking bullshit. And like you literally, not only did you like, I don't know, give like, I thought like a really articulate kind of statement of like why it was absurd to say we shouldn't read Freud because he's racist, but like it was also like you were angry and like, and it was like you carried it. You didn't like spare anyone's feelings. You know what I mean? Like it was a really, for me, I was like, I'm always timid about shit like that. And I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I definitely came from like UC Santa Barbara in the 90s where it's like, don't offend anybody. Like I'm still like, that's still a part of me. But like the other part of me is like the person that thinks exactly what you thought and wanted to say it that way. Have you always been that way? Where you say what you mean?
Yeah. Although I try to temper it with self-deprecation so I can get away with it more. It's important. But like, that was a really funny incident because...
You remember this?
Oh yeah, we were reading Totem and Taboo.
That's right.
And so Freud's making this standard argument at the time that there's like a kind of... I mean, basically this woman was offended by the word primitive.
Right.
He's using the word primitive to describe whatever... primitive culture.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you could. I don't know what the politically correct term is.
Yes.
Like non-Western traditional societies.
I had always thought it was savage, but I don't think that can't be right. Right? You can't say savage instead of primitive.
Well, he's talking about pre-monotheistic religions, basically. Yeah. And like, whatever you're never gonna get there. You're never gonna figure out the right word. And it's not. He doesn't mean. And literally, I just told her like he doesn't mean primitive in a pejorative sense. He means it literally in terms of like priority.
Right.
Like these are first. He's in a way that no historian would accept, but it's Freudian methodology. He's just saying like, these were the first. As far as he knew at the time, sort of religions and what's the significance and how does it relate to, his whole deal, which is the Oedipal complex. And then I was telling her basically that standard thing, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which is like, again, a discredited argument in the history of science, that every individual... member of a species recapitulates in its lifetime the development of the species as such, all the way from like primordial, bacterium to whatever the adult member of the species is. But Freud had that idea in mind that like basically human societies were like that they were all on this kind of like chain, and that neurotics were like that. Neurotics were stuck in certain points of development of the human species.
That's right.
And that societies were too. And it's like this grand analogy, like in terms of just the beauty of an analogy, regardless of its accuracy, it's fucking awesome.
And you know what was awesome about that class too? I mean,
and I'm just like, not that, I don't know. I just like, I love Freud. I mean, I know he's totally wrong about women's sexuality and all this sort of stuff, but he's,
I felt it was personal. You've got something with Freud.
Reading his case studies and stuff is like just hilarious. and the dream theory stuff. I don't know. That's like if I have any kind of, pantheon of people, he's in it.
Yeah.
Despite and partly because he's insane. Like,
right.
And so it's not someone you can actually like really get behind. Pun intended.
Well, yeah.
Like,
no, I know what you mean.
He's wrong.
You're not
wrong
signing off
shit.
on everything.
No, he's wrong about
You're
a lot of shit.
You're extracting ideas. I mean, that's how I felt. I mean, for me about Freud, and I'm not a Freud expert at all, but at the same time, I've always felt like, the ideas that he laid out, especially the ones that kind of like really, really kind of like had a lot of explanatory power in the culture and became kind of touchstones of how we think about the human mind, like the ideas of like what the subconscious is and ideas of dreams and ideas of like the id and the ego. Those things are like, knowing and understanding those concepts does not mean we like sign off on all of Freud. It's important to kind of...
Well, W.H. Auden, the elegy for Freud is like, he's not a person, he's a climate.
Right.
That we live in.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So...
Well, that's like in Century of the Self shit. That's I don't know if you like Adam Curtis film, but like the Century of the Self is like kind of investigates the kind of like...
Yeah, exactly. No, I've seen that, yeah.
Living in the kind of like shadow of psychotherapy.
Amen. No,
I love it.
But back to your, like, I definitely ruffle feathers, and I'm trying to learn to not do that because I'm sick of getting in trouble constantly. But like, for example, in college,
yes,
I was in a class. I fucking hated this class, and I had so much hope for it going in because it was on Mark Twain, who I obviously adore.
Right.
But the professor was just totally checked out. It was like an hour and a half class. He'd always let us go after like 45 minutes. Perfunctory lectures. All the other students were like, "Oh, it's great. We get out after 45 minutes." I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" It's like,
do bong loads in the quad, man. Come on.
Yeah, well, that was the thing about going. I went to this hippie school, but my hippie day, I had like exhausted my hippie days in high school.
Right.
I got there and I wanted to learn. I always wanted to learn, but I when I got there, I was like, it wasn't like my gangster like hood high school being sort of hippie was like rebellious. In Santa Cruz, being a hippie was like
not rebellious.
It was like de jure. Like you had to have fish tapes and Birkenstocks and like not even exaggerate, but.
It's easy to make fun of, but it's also there's something precious about it too. It's like there's something adorable about young kids getting this.
It's hilarious. And, I just find it hilarious.
Becoming like, I don't know, because it's a weird cultural template.
I'm down with new age shit.
Still from
like,
the '60s.
I'm down with that. Yeah, that's like my I don't know.
Yeah,
nostalgic happy point in life.
I don't hate it at all, and I feel like
I wouldn't exist. It
is like. In order, especially like coming to the East Coast and being in like, I don't know, higher academia, hating hippies is just like, you have to do that. Like hippie hatred is something that is pervasive throughout the university in a lot of ways.
Everywhere.
Especially
everyone hates
people.
Hippies. I think hippies hate hippies probably.
Like go to the Graduate Center and bring up like a white guy with dreadlocks, like and ask people what they think of that. And it's just like, that's one of the most hated figures in all of humanity.
Well, it's pretty inauthentic, It's like the white Rasta.
Yeah, totally. But like the thing that's funny about that is like it's easy to make fun of the white Rasta guy, but then like you see a video on YouTube of like a white Rasta guy, he's always just like, "Yo, man, let's go to the concert, have fun, man. We're gonna have a bunch of beers." And like the guy is just like, he's harmless. You know what I mean? It's weird. Like it's disproportionate the level of hatred for this guy because he's like just a fucking. He's just a dude, man. He's just like out there just trying to have a little fun.
Yeah.
He's not hurting anybody. We should have more hatred for shittier people, I think. Culturally.
I agree. That's why I hate that show, Portlandia.
Yeah, I hate that show too.
They're like...
That's a big hippie show.
They're cribbing from Rush Limbaugh to make jokes.
I feel that way too.
I'm not a self-hating... hippie liberal person. I'm just not.
But I feel that way too, and it's really popular among like liberals or whatever. Like I think that whoever watches Portlandia is like, I don't know, the same people that watch Saturday Night Live or something. But it's like, yeah, that humor to me, I always felt like was kind of like easy.
It's like
easy, stupid shit.
It's like Special Olympics booing. It's like you're
right.
gonna pick on the two like feminist lesbians who own a bookstore.
Yeah, right. Or like or an artisanal tea shop, You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's two weirdos that own a tea shop. Let's go fucking savagely make fun of them because fuck those people. And it's like, why? I mean, I get that it's absurd. I mean, trust me. I mean, you've been around Park Slope, right? Like,
I've lived there for years.
Yeah, like the Park Slope Food
I'm
Co-op
aware.
is a parody of itself in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I got in trouble in the seminar for making fun of the co-op.
Yeah, no, I know.
In
I
this
just said that. I know
PCP
people will hate me for saying that.
People are like, come. We were talking about in that seminar I'm in. We were talking
I
about
hate it. Oh,
revolution. That's the difference between revolution with a capital R and a lowercase r. And like somebody was like, "Oh, that's like our students when they come into consciousness. they're having a lowercase r revolution." And I was like, "Man, I'm sorry if I'm just cynical, but when I hear lowercase r, I think Park Slope Food Co-op."
Yeah,
and then everybody got all defensive, like, I'm a member of the co-op. Like literally this professor was coming up to me after the seminar, like wouldn't let it go. Like, do you know it's the like largest cooperatively owned enterprise in the United States? And I'm just like, that's
right on.
That says something. That's like a sad statement about the potential for cooperatively owned enterprises if that's the biggest one.
It just comes with a self-righteous attitude.
It's completely like staffed by academics and like liberal lawyers and like the most educated like righteous generation in the history of the world keeps that place afloat.
It really bothers me because it's like for those that don't know the Park Slope Food Co-op, one of the things they do is they like, I guess like you have to like go home with someone, like when they take a cart, like you take a cart, someone like an employee walks you home.
Well, because there's so many people, everyone has to work there, right? That's like the egalitarian revolutionary part. You don't pay a fee to be a member.
I'm not trying to be a fucking cashier, dude. You know, I'm trying to just get some groceries.
I'm just lazy. I don't go to.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't go to like even when I lived in Park Slope, I didn't go to the opposite side of the neighborhood to get groceries.
I could probably argue for the principles of the Park Slope Food Co-op. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. It's like I could probably. I think I'm down with like whatever they're trying to do or whatever they think they're doing. But like I just don't like the idea that they think they're doing anything different from like fucking Key Food down the road. You know what I mean? It's like so similar in so many ways. And I know there's a Union Market right across the street from Park Slope. And Union Market is like this real like kind of bougie grocery store where everything's like the apples are like $8.
I go there. I go to that.
I'll pay $8 for the apple. I don't care. And like I remember sitting outside like pretty recently, and these Park Slope co-opers walked by with their cart, and one of the dudes says to the other dude, like that's Union Market. That place is pretty much the opposite of the co-op. And I wanted to fight these guys because I was like, how is it the fucking opposite, dude? And like it was like this giant performative pat on the back.
They're siblings.
Yeah. And also
they're
just like
two fancy grocery stores in the same block.
Right. And next
one is cheaper because you got to work there.
Right. One is cheaper because you got to work there.
But it's more famous. It's more.
That should be their slogan. It's cheaper, but you got to work here.
Which is fine. I mean, more power to them. But to me, it's like, I don't know. It's like everything else it's like just a way of, it's lifestyle politics.
Well, it's lifestyle politics. And that's why Trump won. Going back to it's kind of like this elitism, right? And we talk about like all the time, this kind of like cultural elitism. I mean, you feel it at the Graduate Center in the sense of like, you know, the privilege of being able to sit and study this arcane academia all your life. But then when you teach and you go like teach at CUNY specifically, and you teach at a community college at CUNY.
Yeah.
Like there's this dissonance, right? Between like the world of the Park Slope Food Co-op and the academics and the lawyers that go there, and the world of the 18-year-old average CUNY student. Yeah,
I mean, I think with my students who are often it's a traditional student age more and more at the community colleges at CUNY, so they're 18, 19, and a lot of them are from immigrant families. They have the American dream. It's part of what I often joke with them because they'll always be like, if there's something wrong, they start telling me like, not gonna lie, professor, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, you got to learn to lie.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to learn.
What do you mean?
Because that's what they don't understand about the co-op and that whole world they want to enter of like the bourgeoisie is it's hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy is like the lifeblood of being like a middle college, like because the middle class is no longer working. It's no longer like blue collar.
Right.
It's
right.
all white collar. So
Yeah,
it's like to enter it, you have to have that.
You have to be a bullshit artist.
There is, yeah. I mean, you at least have to know that that's part of how you survive.
Yeah. There's a
In
cynicism.
the white collar workforce, you hold your, you can't walk in and just be like, to be honest.
Yeah, right. TBH.
Not gonna lie.
You tell your students like, no, don't
like,
do that.
Lie to me.
Yeah.
Tell me you like this poem and why.
Yeah.
Which line did you like? If you don't like it, you're not playing the game correctly.
Right.
No,
that's true.
So like, I don't know, just.
So
it's a weird. So there are connections. I mean, I think like you have to be able to. For me, like with giving them, I would give them high level reading. Like I'll give them Freud to read.
Right.
We just read in my class. They had to write a dream analysis in English 101, and we read like whatever.
Do they analyze their own
the
dreams?
Wolfman. We read like highfalutin Freud.
Yeah.
And they liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, we go over it in class. A lot of them don't even read, so I just am like, we're gonna read through this.
Right.
And I know you guys didn't read because you didn't come in telling me this is insane that this guy had a dream about wolves in a tree, and it's really about seeing his dad do his mom doggy style when he was
Is that a real dream?
When he was 1.5.
1.5. He saw
That's
that.
yeah.
And then later on,
he had
about
a dream about wolves in a tree, and the trees turns out it's a Christmas tree. His birthday is Christmas.
Jesus Christ.
The wolves are his dad. He wants his dad to do him from behind. I mean, it's like this crazy dream. It's like
you can't get students to say that in class, though. Like I feel like that. I mean, what I mean by that is like I've found that students are very timid about like talking about that kind of shit.
That's where my insane personality is useful.
Yeah.
To me.
You coax it out of them.
Well, it's in the text.
Yeah.
So we're just like, why is it? Why wolves, you guys? Why wolves?
You don't get a lot of like, ew, that's gross kind of shit.
Well, I'll warn them.
Yeah.
Like I'm teaching the Oedipus complex, and I'm showing them Blue Velvet. I'm like, if you have a religious background, I'm like into these like trigger warnings because I give them things to read, and I know their backgrounds are not preparing them for secular modernism. So it's like, you gotta prepare. You gotta.
So you do a trigger warning,
but I do it in the sense of I do it like reverse psychology. Like it's totally fine if you guys want to leave. Like there's gonna be some really weird, heavy shit in this movie.
You know what? It's like the parental advisory sticker.
And then they all stay like they're literally like in their hijabs.
That's
like,
what I've
in
found.
There, they're in there and just like, wow.
Yeah. They want to see.
My parents would never show this to me. That's the freedom of teaching adults and teaching college. Is like,
yeah, that's true. A teacher showed me Blue Velvet in college.
Exactly,
and I thank her for showing us that because I was like, I'd never seen that, and to me, it's like, I mean, the first time you see Blue Velvet is like a special moment. There's nothing quite like that movie.
It's dark.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Well, it's got
medicine.
I mean, that scene where it's actually, speaking of Zizek, it's in that where he's like in the closet with Kyle MacLachlan, like watching Dennis Hopper and Isabella Rossellini do this like weird like pantomime of like mommy daddy sex. It's so fucking rich. What a text. For anyone who hasn't seen Blue Velvet, go watch that right now. It's so good. It's such an awesome movie. I love David Lynch.
I mean, it's the nice thing about teaching film is like you can become unjaded about movies like that and all the psychobabble theory because you're showing it to people for the first time. But anyway, just going back to, I was going to tell this story about Mark Twain in college. So I took this class, terrible teacher, didn't give a shit, let class out early, whatever. We get to Huck Finn. And my disappointment reached like fury because when he was reading the text, he never said the N-word. he would say like Negro or
right,
colored
right.
person.
Oh wow! And just he would like literally replace it,
and never he replaced it, and he never said anything about why he was doing this. So one day in class
awful,
when he
man.
was doing this, I was just like, man, in this lecture, 100-person class, I was like, dude, like we got to talk about why you're not
saying
that, and like I think it's like not. I think it's problematic that you're not saying that. Like you're whitewashing history by not putting that word there.
Yeah.
And we got into it. He was like, well, I'm just like not comfortable with that, and you don't get to tell me what to do. And I was like, well, maybe you're not ready to read this book.
Is this an undergrad?
And then literally there were like,
is this undergrad?
Undergrad,
yeah. Oh, he must have hated you.
Oh yeah, he loved. I was in his section, and my first couple of papers he gave me like A's, and then after that it was like nitpicking me. Whatever.
I'm sure.
And then hilariously, like there were no black people in the class.
Of course not.
You know, I mean, I feel like I count as a person of, you know, my dad is immigrated here from Mexico, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like totally assimilated, but I like count as a person of color in that classroom.
Right.
And like, hilariously, just going back, there were like these Wigger kids who were like
that word is problematic.
But that's what they are. They were like all in my business.
Yeah.
Like after the class.
Oh God,
like completely offended by me saying we should actually read the words in the book.
So there are like these white kids who are co-opting black culture, who are on board with the teacher kind of whitewashing the history. What a
political correctness.
Weird, complex mix of racial politics there. That's so fucking weird. And it's very.
I mean, you can see why.
I kind of recognize
if
it.
There's people on the left who are so like how we're saying, and I think you sort of agree. If there's people on the left who are just like this. I mean, I'm for political correctness in the sense of like treating people with dignity and respect and so on, and like being civil, but like you have to break through that too sometimes and just be real.
Yeah. No, and
like whatever, use humor or whatever, but like I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm lucky to have a job in academia, frankly, given how how often I break rank on like
that kind of shit.
Talking back to my seniors.
Well, it's also always like oftentimes this political correctness conversation is happening, and this has just been in my experience coming from where I came from, the suburbs of Southern California. It's like it was all white people talking about this shit. Like there were no black people around, so it was like a lot of white people kind of imagining what they think would offend black people or would not offend black people, and it was kind of like a lot of speaking for this monolithic black population that was nowhere near anywhere where we were physically. And so it kind of like, I don't know, I see that repeated in conversations on the left a lot. Is this kind of like speaking for populations that don't have anything to do with us?
The left, I mean, to the extent that there's a left in our country, it's academics.
Yeah.
That's a self-consciously left-wing group of people that are like moderately organized. Like we just bitch at each other on social media, basically.
Yeah.
That's all I think we really are doing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you interact with, like, that's why I love my students, right? Like they're like, you know, they're like real people who come from oppression. I mean, they don't often know about it,
right?
Because why would they? They don't know any different. And you know, you just see like the potential for just whatever. I mean, I hate talking about Trump because it's but it's like he totally. The guy intuitively and through training with all this like Roy Cohn demagoguery and so on, like he just taps into the frustration people feel with like
I agree.
You know, we basically the one real outcome of the civil rights movement was like integrating all the elites. While there's still the underclass and the underclass grew, the middle class shrank. And you know,
we have a slightly more diverse
and you're
elite.
supposed to worry about like offending anyone when and people don't necessarily know how to articulate it, but like they feel in their lives that like shit's fucked.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
The possibilities for their kids are diminished. Like
in a material way.
Like
they're not
literally
fucked because like someone's talking about them the wrong way somewhere. They're fucked because
that's happening too, and that's like injury to insult.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. No, that adds.
You're like
you're right.
You're white
adds,
trash, or you're racist, or whatever.
Yeah, no.
And maybe you are, but like, I don't know. I mean, to me, that's where I'm just like a primitive Marxist. Like, I'm like, if we just had more people having fucking decent, humane jobs and lives, and possibility for happiness, then a lot of that resentment would, evaporate.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
You could still hate somebody,
sure,
on an individual basis.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
why would you wouldn't give a shit?
Have structural
the resentment
power.
is grows out of like frustration.
Well, yeah, I mean, Chris Hedges I've been talking about this a lot on the show because I just taught it in my class at NYU. The Chris Hedges "War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning." But in that book, he kind of like talks about like the different human contexts for like, and like there are like social contexts for bringing out certain types of human behavior, and like war brings out some of the most savage, shitty things that human beings are capable of. Where like kind of I think what you're describing is in a world where material wealth is more equally distributed and people didn't feel so desperate and vulnerable, then they wouldn't that context would be less likely to produce demagoguery and racism, and demagoguery wouldn't be able to get a foothold in a society like that. It seems like at least that's the hope.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but we live in a society where it does have a foothold.
Yeah.
So maybe one that doesn't, where it doesn't have a foothold, would have, different characteristics.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just a fucking English teacher.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just a history teacher, man. We're just trying to figure this out. And like, I mean, teaching shit is like, I think you're right. I mean, I agree with you in the sense of like that's where I feel like the front line is of like what I'm trying to do. It didn't seem like it was your original goal in going to graduate school was to become a teacher. It felt like your goal when you started graduate school was more along the lines of like being a thinker and exploring like, I don't know, the limits of your scholastic capacities.
I found those limits.
Yeah,
I found those limits.
Yeah. No, I think that's the best academics do, I think, is find the moment where you're like, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm a teacher and like I'm going back to the basics.
Well, to me, writing, I really, Stephen Jay Gould wrote these essays for Natural History Magazine once a month for 26 years. In addition to all his other, and that's what made him famous, right? That's like
his blog, basically.
Ever since Darwin and like all these books of anthologies of his essays that made him like a popular figure.
Yeah.
And he said, like near the end of his life, like, how did you stay motivated about this? He's like, it's really simple. I write about things in order to understand them and learn about them.
Yeah.
Like he's like, it's selfish of me.
Yeah.
Really. And I think that's, not to compare myself to him, but I feel like that's a way to keep yourself going with academic work. It's just like you're not really going to understand this topic until you write about it.
Yeah. And take it on.
And then and for me, I'm just in between like, neuroses, loathing, and like laziness.
Right,
it takes me a lot longer to do that than some other academics.
Yeah,
but I still feel like that's the process I go through. It's like you gotta, just do your work. Try not to bullshit people. And fucking maybe you'll write a book at the end of it.
Yeah.
Or just an article. But
man, you should be a motivational speaker. And you're like,
I am
a
motivational speaker.
Do whatever the fuck, I don't know, and then maybe it'll work out. Maybe it won't.
Well,
who fucking knows, really?
Stay out of your own way.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of your own greatness.
Yeah, you've got a lot of good advice, actually, I feel like. Matt Lau, thanks so much for sitting down. I appreciate it. Okay, big thank you to my guest, Matt Lau. I had a great time talking with Matt, someone who I always had fun talking to in graduate school, and it was great to catch up with him. I haven't talked to him in a long time, and I hope to have Matt back on some of the AM/FM episodes. Speaking of which, if you haven't checked it out, I have put up the first episode of mini Nostalgia Trap AM/FM episodes, which are kind of like remixes of very focused conversations about apocalyptic subjects. The first installment of AM/FM is me and Justin Rogers Cooper, who many of you may remember from our paranoid and insane conversations on topical fever, which is the kind of first version of the Nostalgia Trap. He is back to talk about the atomic bomb. So check out that episode. It's episode 56. You can find it at nostalgiatrap.com, where you can also donate to the show via PayPal. At the top there, you can find a donate button. And you can also follow me on Twitter at David L. Parsons, and you'll find the newest episodes always pinned to the top of my Twitter feed. So I hope to see you there. I hope to see you on the internet, and I hope to have you listening to more Nostalgia Trap as we produce them. So thanks a lot to Peter Sabatino, who is producing these shows and is doing an excellent job on these and the AM/FM episodes. I'm loving how the show sounds. And thanks also to Chapo, the band Chapo, Chappo. You can go to chapomusic.com and check out all their stuff. Their music is awesome, and I'm really enjoying their production for this episode too. So thanks a lot to Chapo, and thanks a lot for listening. This is the Nostalgia Trap. Thank you. Goodbye.